This week I had the chance to listen to a man as he reflected on reaching the 7-year anniversary of his sobriety. And I was so taken aback by what he said about himself. He said that before he became sober, there were so many things that he thought that he would just never be able to do. Birthdays he never thought that he'd see, milestones at work that he'd never reach. It all just seemed impossible to him. And yet now, he said, 7 years later, he realizes that one of the great gifts of his sobriety is that he's starting to see the things that he never thought possible happen. He's starting to witness each of these milestones that he thought was out of reach for him. An entirely new realm of possibilities has been opened up to him. And because of it, his life has been completely changed. As I listened to him tell his story, I couldn't help but think of today's scriptures. Because all of them this week, the Old Testament, the Psalm, the Epistle, and the Gospel, they all tell us who we are supposed to be. They remind us that God does in fact care about the kind of people that we are. But if you're anything like me, when you hear all of the qualities listed out one after the other, my mind immediately goes to all the things that I think that I will just never be able to do myself. Listen to some of it again. Today we were told that we are to be the kind of people who never seek positions of honor, who delight in God's commandments, who don't fear evil rumors, who always show hospitality to strangers, who think of those who are being tortured as though we're being tortured with them, who are faithful to our vows, who don't love money, who are content with what we have, and who don't seek to be repaid for good deeds. And that's not all of them, that's just to name a few. I mean, who here can listen to those things and say, yeah, that sounds like me? I mean, none of us, right? And it's not just that the list is so long. There's so much about us and around us that pushes us in the exact opposite direction. We're told to give freely and to lend generously, but have you noticed how quickly a child learns how to say the word mine? Or say what you will about the world that we live in, but do you think that our leaders in any number of arenas are known above all else for being merciful and compassionate, who think of those in prison as though they themselves were imprisoned? Even the ones that are easy for us to follow, like choosing a lesser seat at a dinner party, can become an occasion for self-exaltation. I mean, who wouldn't want to go sit in a low seat just to hear a host say, oh, no, come up higher, sit in the place of honor? We are far too self-seeking people in and of ourselves. There's so much that's working against us that it all just seems a little bit impossible. Like we're too limited by our own finitude and our shortcomings. And it's true. At face value, it is impossible. We are too limited by our finitude. And yet, this also is true. God is committed to having a peculiar people, a people that stand against the grain of the world that's around them. A people that are crafted not in the image of the world or in the image of the powers that be, but in the image of his beloved Son. Because that's what this is all really about. All that we heard today, the list of things that we were called to be, all of it can be funneled down into one thing. All aspects of our life are called to become like Christ. So if both of these things are true, that it's impossible for us to truly become these things by ourselves, and also that God is committed to us to becoming those things, then there's only one real option for us. There has to be a change. There has to be something beyond ourselves that can open us up to an entirely new realm of possibilities. that enables our lives to be transformed. And so the question today is how? How can this transformation happen? Well, you'll be unsurprised to know that the answer, in fact, is God. There's a great moment in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader when Eustace, the problem child in the book, wakes up and realizes to his horror that he's been turned into a dragon. And in a moment of even greater illumination, he realizes that his scales and fiery breath and his ghastly appearance are a representation of the kind of person that he is. He's been selfish and rude. He's stolen. He's looked down on everyone else. But right at his lowest point, in the middle of the night, Aslan the lion appears to him and leads him up to a well on a high mountain. And he tells Eustace that he can get into the water that's in the well. But first, his dragon scales have to be removed. So Eustace takes his big dragon claws and he starts scratching at his scales until there's a layer laying on the ground in front of him. But as soon as he starts to step into the water, he realizes that he's still covered in more scales. So he starts furiously clawing at himself again until now there are 2 layers at his feet. But again, when he sees his reflection, he realizes that there are still more scales. And so he does it a 3rd time, only to the same result. Finally, Aslan looks at Eustace and he tells him, I have to remove the scales for you. And with one deep cut with his lion's claw, all of the beastly scales fall at their feet. And Eustace leaves the place transformed. Not only has he been turned into a human again, but there has been an inner transformation that has taken place. And friends, it's the same for us. We hear the call to be new, and we see a glimpse of what that life could be like, but then we try to scratch and scrape our way into transformation without realizing that our best efforts can only remove those outermost layers. And all the while, God is patiently saying to us, I have to do it for you. Cease your striving and just offer up everything to me. The ancient church fathers and mothers would often use the analogy of placing an iron rod in the fire. And if you ever left a poker in the fireplace before, you'll understand what they mean. They said that the closer that you place that rod into the hottest part of the fire, and the longer that you keep it there, it starts to change. It begins to take on the properties of fire. It absorbs the fire's heat. It starts to turn red and then bright white as it reflects the fire's light. Yes, it is and will remain an iron rod, but it begins to bear the qualities of fire. And so it is, they'd say, with you and with me. The closer and the longer that we dwell in the grace and the power and the glory of God, who is a consuming fire, the more we began to bear the properties of his image. We absorb the fire of his spirit. We become suffused with his light. We begin to reflect his humility. And so our task is not to create a list to follow, but to abide in the God whose very presence makes people new. It's never earned. It is always a gift of grace to be received. And as I look out here today and I see all of your faces, I know that for so many of you, as you look back over your life, you've seen that transforming power of God at work in you and in your family. I know so many of your stories. You know that you are not who you used to be. You've seen God deliver you from addiction. You've seen him heal relationships. You've found yourself becoming more compassionate and gracious. You've become far more generous and giving and less selfish than you once were. And it's happened in a way that makes absolutely no sense other than the grace of God at work in you, transforming you from glory to glory into his image. And I also imagine, in a group of this size, that there are others here who, if you're honest with yourself, you'd admit that maybe you haven't seen that kind of transformation in a while. Perhaps you're still struggling with the same old greed or unforgiveness or hardness of heart and all the same vices and addictions that have bared down on you for years. And if that's you, the great relief is that the crucified and risen Jesus has not come to accuse you today. Instead, he comes with an invitation. Because he is the only one whose invitation is always come up higher. Whether you sit in the place of honor or at the lowest seat, or if you feel like your foot is barely in the door, he is beckoning you to move up higher, to draw nearer to his side, to offer up more and more of yourself to him. Your strengths and weaknesses, the things that you treasure most, your brokenness, and the things you try so hard to keep hidden from the world. He's beckoning you to offer it all and draw near. May you do so today. Amen.